Well, I thought, I'm a Republican. I'm a very good Republican, but I thought Bush was a terrible president. I thought he was a terrible leader. The country had no spirit. And ultimately, he did so badly at the end that we have Obama. That's what we have. I mean, that was a gift from President Bush. I thought Clinton actually
You're not a fan of the president?
No, I've never been a fan because, look, I am the most militant person there is. I'm a big war guy in terms of I want total defense. I want perhaps an increase in defense spending, okay? But you don't attack the wrong country. Iraq did not knock down the World Trade Center. As it turned out, he did attack the wrong country. And frankly, they used to kill terrorists in Iraq. You could not be a terrorism and last a day in Iraq. Now it's the Harvard, it's the breeding ground for terrorism. I mean, everybody that wants to be a terrorist, they go to Iraq, they go to Afghanistan, they go to the places where we are. The fact is, Bush, I thought, was not good. Clinton was a good president, but it was so marred with this whole Monica thing. I mean, he's a friend of mine. He's a lovely guy. He's a great guy. I really like him, but I thought they treated him very, very harshly, absolutely.
And yet he's popular now, more popular than he's ever been.
He's more popular. That's because he's a quality guy. He really is. He's a quality guy. And he's a Democrat, but he's a quality guy. He's also a member of my golf club.
What is your view of President Obama right now?
I think he's a nice man. I think he's in over his head. It's amazing the way he got the job. I respect him for getting the job, but it's amazing the way he got the job. He signed up people on street corners in Chicago. All of a sudden, he's the president of the United States.
I mean, he got a hell of a shellacking, as he put it, in the midterms, but his ratings right now, mid-50s, are significantly higher than Ronald Reagan and President Clinton at the same time of their administration. So he's doing pretty well, actually.
Well, the fact is he is doing well, and the Republicans have let him back into the game because during the lame duck session, I don't know what happened with the Republicans. I don't know who was leading them, but they totally gave him credibility. He was Jimmy Carter, and now he's the Phoenix.
But is this a problem? Who is leading the Republicans, and who should be?
I don't think there is a leader right now of the candidates. Romney, I guess, would be somebody that people are thinking about, but it's not resonating. Sarah Palin is somebody that I happen to like. I just don't think she can win the election, and a lot of people agree. She can win the primary, perhaps, but she can't win the election. I can tell you, Obama is dying to run against Sarah Palin, and you can't do that again as a Republican Party. You can't put somebody like in Delaware, Christine O'Donnell, where she goes in and she beats somebody that would have won by 15 points. She beats him in the primary, and then she gets killed in the election.
Is this precisely why you're so tempted to run?
Well, I am tempted to run, but I think the primary reason I'm tempted, I guess, yes, I think I could win. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. I'm not doing it to come in fourth place and really do a great job as a businessman. You know, in theory, I shouldn't be able to win because they've always said somebody with great accomplishment, somebody who's done many, many deals. I've done hundreds and hundreds of deals, and I've beaten a lot of people. I mean, I'm not saying it bragging. I beat a lot of people. And those guys are not nice guys, and I have lots of enemies and lots of different things. And I've always heard where people like me cannot win because there's too many enemies. But whether it's me or somebody else, you need a person like me to run this country for a while because we have to get this country back so that we're respected again. We have to get this country back so that this country is making the big profits, not China, not India. I mean, American Express, you call up your American Express card, the people are based in India that answer the phone. What's going on? Our people can't answer a phone? So we have all of this outsourcing to countries all over the world. In the meantime, we have...
But I mean, Don,
we have really an 18% unemployment, not 9%. We have an 18% unemployment.
I get what you're saying, but aren't you being, unusually for you, quite defensive about this? I mean, isn't there a way of looking at this...
Defensive?
Yeah. But I know you're being aggressive, but it's kind of passive aggression, because actually isn't the way to deal with this the way that you would if it was your company? You go on the attack.
Well, I would do that,
You wouldn't sit there going, well, this is all unfair. You go, you know something? Right, shirt sleeves up, let's go get them.
No, you're right, but I would protect our business. And when we come back after the break, I want to know how you, shirt sleeves rolled up, will get America back on its feet. Okay.
Back now with my special guest, Donald Trump. Donald, what would you do to fix America? Put aside the China, the trade issue for one moment. There's something inherently wrong with the system in this country, which led to the financial crisis, isn't there? 10% of Americans are unemployed, probably more, as you say. What's the answer here? You're a great employer. Tell me how we're going to sort this.
Well, for one thing, we're protecting the world. Why are we protecting South Korea without being paid? Okay? They're a competitor. They make a tremendous amount of money off of us. They sell their televisions, everything else. Why are we protecting South Korea? We just signed a horrible trade agreement with South Korea. They weren't going to sign it until North Korea lobbed a couple of bombs over there. Then they called. They said, oh, we'd like to sign the trade. You're a great partner. You're a great partner. And we stupidly send the SS George Washington, the most incredible aircraft carrier I've ever seen, and 17 destroyers right into North Korea. Why aren't they paying us? I mean, why are we protecting them? They make hundreds of billions of dollars of profits against the United States. You know, one of the great ones, 52 million. I don't know how many of the folks in the audience see this, but a few months ago, 52 million in cash in a briefcase was sent to Afghanistan. You know that. It ended up in Dubai, 52 million. Now, you know, the 52 million was actually 100 million probably, but, you know, somebody stole it along the way, whether it's a soldier. I want to know, who is the colonel or the general or whoever it is that approved 52 million in cash? It definitely wasn't 52. I guarantee it was more.
If you were president, would you take all American troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq now?
Well, Iraq, we shouldn't have been there, and I get them out real fast. Afghanistan is not the bigger problem. The bigger problem is Pakistan. You have to know, when you fight a battle, you have to know who to fight. Pakistan probably has Osama bin Laden. Now think of it. You have a 6'6" Arab, and we can't find him, who's on a dialysis machine, and we can't find him. You tell me this, with all our so-called intelligence and everything else, guy's 6'6", pretty unusual, right? We can't find Osama bin Laden. There's something wrong. We give hundreds of billions of dollars to Pakistan, and they're probably housing him. He may be housed, frankly, in Saudi Arabia, because you think Saudi Arabia's our friend. I mean, nobody hurts us like Saudi with the fuel prices.
What's interesting, on Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned to you tonight, there's other breaking news, is that the King of Saudi Arabia has been very firm with President Obama, basically telling him to leave off Mubarak and, keep our big noses out of it, allegedly. So what do you think of that situation that's developing, where you're beginning to see the old order in the Middle East standing up to America and saying, this is our business, not yours?
They're standing up for the first time because they don't respect us anymore. They didn't used to stand up. They're standing up now because they didn't respect. They're standing up now because they can do anything they want. You have to go over there and see some of the airports that they're building. They make Kennedy Airport look like it's third world country. They make LaGuardia. I land at LaGuardia, and then I go into Abu Dhabi, and I go into Qatar. I go into these airports. It's like the most incredible things you've ever seen. We're like a third world country, and they wouldn't be there. Look at Kuwait. Saddam Hussein attacks Kuwait. We then go in, get him out, we lose lives, we spend hundreds of billions of dollars, we put out Red Adair, we put out all the oil well fires, and he said all the oil wells. We hand them back the country. Now they don't invest in the United States because you know why? They say the return on investment's not good enough. We're not going to invest in it.
Maybe they have a point. And also, here's the other point. Companies like General Motors, companies like Coca-Cola are all investing heavily in places like China, and they're doing very well out of it. Isn't the answer to go where the business enemy is and take them on at their own game and make money out of them? Isn't that what you would do instinctively?
I think it's great. But if you look at what happened to General Electric, what happened to them with technology, where they had to give up all their technology to China, where they have to build plants in China, where they have to do all of these things. Hey, I like the Chinese. I'm fine with the Chinese. And if I were them, I'd be doing the same thing if I could get away with it. We can't let them continue to get away with it.
What are the other problems here, though? I mean, you saw the disintegration of the financial system. You can't just blame foreign competition here. What was wrong with the system here that should be now put right properly?
Well, look, you're always going to have problems with financial systems. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, which is the best business school probably in the world. I dealt with people that were super brilliant people. I know how smart they are. Regulations, I mean, these people don't know what a regulation is, and they find ways around them. You have really smart guys writing regulations, but you have smarter guys figuring out how to beat the regulations.
The same bankers that got us into the mess now be allowed, in regulation way, to be awarding themselves huge bonuses again?
Well, I mean, look what happened with Chase today. I mean, they got caught for taking advantage of military and soldiers that are in Afghanistan and Iraq and taking advantage of them. I think it's terrible. What Chase has done, I think, is terrible. And I think what the banks is doing right now, they took all the money, the taxpayer money, and if you go in, if anybody in this audience wants a home loan, you're not going to get it, okay? You're not going to get it.
Because they're awarding themselves millions of dollars in bonuses.
And one of the things...
I think it's scandalous.
I think it's terrible. And one of the things, and you know what, I'm saying that, and I really do, I believe it's terrible. They took all of this money to stay solvent. They're taking big bonuses. But here's the bigger problem. The big picture problem is they're not loaning the money. There's millions of empty homes because nobody can go out and get a mortgage.
Here's a tweet I want you to respond to. It's a great address, by the way. Kick a snowflake is, is the tweeter.
I like it.
As President Trump, who would be the first person you'd say you're fired to?
Well, I mean, they want me to say, look, you know, I have had so much.
Who do they want you to say?
Well, they want me to say Obama.
Well, you've already, if you're president,
okay?
he's already gone.
That's it.
Yeah. Who's the #1 bad guy right now you would fire in America?
Well, can I be honest? I don't want to say. There's so many of them. There really are. There are so many of them. You look at a Department of Education. It goes for blocks and blocks and blocks. So education should really be, I mean, we have to like a little bit of supervision.
So you wouldn't argue, would you?
Education should be a local thing. It should be a state
Well, I was going to mention education to you, because last word with the Chinese, isn't the reality with them that they are educating their people better now than America is doing? And that's why they're also jumping ahead. Isn't that true?
And you know where they're educating a lot of their people? At our schools. It's the most amazing thing. They come over, they learn, they go to Harvard, they go to Wharton, they go to Yale, they go to the best schools, and then we force them to leave.
Okay.
We force them to leave.
No, I know that. Okay. When we come back, I'm going to ask you, as a man who wins and knows how to pick a winner, which is where I come in, how are we going to win? That was, of course, my triumphant moment, winning season 1 of NBC Celebrity Apprentice. Donald, I mean, it was quite terrifying and arduous and all that kind of thing. But at the end, I realised why you're such a winner, because you picked the right guy.
Well, I know that you're being cute, but the fact is I did pick the right guy. And Trace was fantastic, and many other people in that group were fantastic. And frankly, Trace Atkins is the #1 country singer right now. And when he went on the show, I was complaining. Who the hell ever heard of him? Nobody heard of him. You know that.
Yeah.
So Trace is not complaining either.
What does it take in general? I read your books before I competed in your show to try and get inside your brain. And I love the one called Think Big and Kick Ass, because it kind of summed up, I think, the Trump philosophy, isn't it? Which is, don't go micro on these things. Think big and you can win. Is that your steely philosophy?
Well, not everybody can think big. I mean, you have home builders that build one home. They're not going to build big developments, and they do a great service to the community. You have people that do small jobs, and they do a great service. Not everybody can think big. If everybody thought big, it would be a pretty crowded world out there. It wouldn't be very pleasant. But I think that you should, within reason, think as big as you can. And, you know, it was very, very interesting with that book. That book did very well. My books all go to #1 or do really well as bestsellers. But I have to tell you, that book, because of the kick-ass, didn't do quite as well, because a lot of parents, it was around Christmas time, and a lot of parents couldn't buy it for their child because they didn't like the title. It's really true. I said, why isn't that book selling like everything else? But they really had a problem, you know, giving a 7-year-old kid a book with that title.
Here's a really interesting aspect to your character. You've never had a drop of alcohol in your life, have you?
That's right. Never.
I mean, I found that amazing when I discovered that fact
well,
about you.
for me, it was very easy. I mean,
You've never touched a drug?
No, I've never had drugs.
You've never smoked cigarettes?
I've never had cigarettes.
And you don't even drink coffee, do you?
And I don't drink coffee.
I mean, it's amazing.
Well, yeah, and I have other problems, I guess. But
Well,
I don't
we're going to come to the women in a moment.
I didn't necessarily mean that.
Women are your vice, right?
No, I just respect women. I find women very beautiful. I think women are great. I have a fantastic wife, Melania.
I'm going to come back to the women, because I want to focus more on this discipline and where you get it from. You told me once a very interesting story about you had an older brother who was an alcoholic, and he died of alcoholism, and he told you before he died, don't drink and don't smoke.
Well, I had an older brother named Fred, who was a great guy, a handsome guy, the most handsome guy that you've ever seen. He had everything going, but he loved flying airplanes, and he actually was a pilot. He was a professional pilot. And somewhere along the line, I think it was in college, he started drinking, and he got worse and worse. And he also smoked a lot. And he would tell me, and he was quite a bit older than me, about 10 years older, he'd say, don't ever smoke, don't ever drink. Don't ever smoke, don't ever drink. And I say that to my kids now. No drinking, no drugs, no alcohol. I also say, and no tattoos, because I think tattoos are horrible. I see this tattoo phrase that's going on.
And do they
it's horrible.
Do they all follow your lead, as you did?
I think, well, so far my kids have been following my lead, but, you know, I drive them crazy. They say, Dad, will you stop? But anyway, so I had this great brother who had everything going, but he became an alcoholic. He smoked a lot, but forget the smoking. He became an alcoholic. And ultimately, he died. It was amazing genes that he lasted as long as he did, but he was a very severe alcoholic. He was an amazing guy. And you know, he was, in a certain way, my father was a great teacher, but he was one of my great teachers, if not my best. But he got me not to smoke, not to drink. And, you know, it's very interesting. I went to college, and I had a friend who hated the taste of scotch. Just hated it. He said, Donald, I'm working so hard to develop a taste for scotch. I said, listen, you're lucky, just don't have it. He said, no, I want to do it at social. He's now today a very bad alcoholic. And scotch is his
Even
vice.
though you hated the taste to start with?
He hated the taste.
What do you feel?
To develop a taste. So I say to people, don't drink. You know, it's so easy. You say, oh, it must be hard. It's not hard. If you don't drink,
when you see
it's real
people
easy.
at business dinners, I go to quite a few of them as you do, and by midnight they're rolling out drunk, and they're senior business people. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, there's a banker, and obviously I'm not going to mention names, nor am I going to mention names of the congressmen, all of whom I know. Okay? Boy, would that be good. I see his eyes lighting up when I say that. But I won't mention.
I've still got 20 minutes.
With me, it goes to the grave. But I'll never forget a very respected banker, highly respected, and he was making a speech at the Waldorf Astoria, and he was very tipsy, very, you know, and shortly thereafter, he was just totally stone-cold drunk. There were probably 2,000 people, 1,500 people at this dinner, and it was a very big event, and we carried him out on his back. And I never felt the same way about him. I see him today, and I just don't feel the same way. We carried him out. He was stone-cold drunk in a big dinner, and I didn't even know he drank. But we carried him out, literally on his back. And
is he still a senior banker?
He just retired. But he was a very powerful banker, one of the biggest, and I never felt the same way about him.
You lost respect for him?
I lost respect for him. I lost respect for him.
When we come back, I'm going to talk to you about your own great area of expertise, the female form.
Oh, wow.
Now, men around the world are jealous of Donald Trump, but it's got nothing to do with your wealth or your business sense or anything. It's to do with the huge array of dazzlingly beautiful women that you've managed to snare over the years, Donald. How have you done it? What's the secret?
Well, I guess it's my looks. I'm a very handsome man. I don't know what it is exactly. Well, I've just always admired women. And I mean women, not just beautiful women, women. I'm a great believer in women. I have tremendous respect for women. I was one of the very early people that employed women in the real estate business, especially the construction business. I had a woman build the Grand Hyatt Hotel, which I built at Grand Central Terminal years ago, and that was a long time. I had a woman that was very much involved with, at the top level, with the construction of Trump Tower on 57th and 5th.
Well, what's more important to you, women or business?
Well, business is more important because I'm a happily married man.
I mean, if I could offer you, well, here's a deal for you. If I could offer you a check for $10 billion.
10 billion?
Billion.
Billion. Whoa.
But the deal is you can't have sex for the next 10 years.
Not even with your wife?
With my wife?
No.
Definitely not with my wife.
That could be the best line of the evening.
Come on, $10 billion, but that's the deal. You'd have to give up women, or in a sexual way, for 10 years.
Well, would that include my wife?
Yes. Would you take the deal?
No, I'd absolutely take my wife.
Really?
Well, I have to say that. I mean, I've got to go home. Got to go home.
You see? So actually, it is women in the end, isn't it?
No,
Or
women
one
are,
woman.
look, women are great. I respect women greatly. Always have.
What kind of husband have you been, do you think?
Well, I think I've been a very good husband lately, but I will say that over the years, I've probably been a much better father than a husband. I've been very, very busy with my business. My business sort of, not that it's right, but it always came first. And I remember John Paul Getty, who was a great man in terms of business, not a great man in terms of life, but in terms of business, was saying that, and I was very young and I listened to him, he was a very old man and I sort of respected him. He said that I really find it very hard for a woman and a wife to compete with my business. And he said that. Now, in my case, I think I'll maybe do a little modification of that because I have a great family life, I have great kids. But I will say this, I've been a great father and I've done very well with my children. A lot of people, I'm getting a lot of credit for my children. They've been good kids, they're smart, they went to the best schools. You know Ivanka and you know Don and Eric.
They're great kids.
But they're great kids and they've worked hard and they're doing a really good job.
And they have huge respect for you, too.
I hope so.
Are you vain?
I think I am pretty vain. No, I am. I mean, I think the look is very important. I think a
What is
person's...
the look?
Well, it's a lot of different looks. You know, Don King used to go around to me and say, you have the look, you have the look. Well, in his own way, he has the look. You know, he was...
But if I want the look, what is it?
Oh, you've got a long way to go. No, you've got the look. I mean, you've got the look. Look, who knows what it is. I'm not just talking about Cary Grant. Look, we don't have Cary Grant today. He was so great, right? We don't have that.
But George Clooney is
there's something. George Clooney, great-looking guy. I mean, it's not just about that. Like, for instance, I mentioned Don King. They tried to imitate him or tried to do something with him in a movie with a replacement. It didn't work.
It would be journalistically remiss of me not to mention one of your great attributes, I think, which is your hair.
Right, and it is my hair. You know that.
Well, okay? I know, because I've tested it.
You've actually tested it. He actually walked up and fooled me.
I did.
Which I'll do right now.
So it's all real.
It's my real,
But it's probably the most famous hair in America, isn't it?
Well, I guess it is, and, you know, I can tell you, NBC certainly wouldn't want me. Somebody said, why don't you just give yourself a crew cut or shave it or something, make it like... And I've been combing it like this. You know, it's very interesting. I saw some of your pictures, not that one, but I saw some of your pictures from an earlier day, and it was very similar. So it is my hair, and I'll have friends. I had a friend come up to my office recently. I hadn't seen him since high school. I said, wait till you see this guy. This is the greatest looking guy. He did better with the girls than anybody. He was fantastic. He walks up to my office. He weighed 100 pounds too much. He was bald as a blat. He had, you have no idea, big glasses and a cigar. And I said, what the hell happened to you? So it is my hair. I'm very happy.
Before we go to the break, a quick tweet here. What do you say to critics who say beauty pageants are at best archaic and at worst sexist and demeaning of women? From T. Deliganis.
Well, they're not archaic because I bought the Miss Universe pageant and the Miss USA pageant, and they're doing terrifically in the ratings.
Are they demeaning to women, do you think?
I don't think so. I think just the opposite. I mean, there's a certain group of women, maybe it doesn't play as well in New York, but I can tell you, you go to Alabama, you go to Texas, you go to places, it's the hottest thing there is. You go throughout the world, Asia, South America, forget it. In Venezuela, in Colombia, they closed down the country to have the Miss Colombia or to have the Miss Universe pageant. The Miss Universe pageant is one of the largest grossing pageants in the world. Not pageants, television shows, anywhere in the world. It gets tremendous ratings worldwide. And it's really good and really good for the girls. And, you know, these are tremendous people. A lot of these young women are tremendous people.
Well, we're talking of tremendous people. I'm going to come back after the final break and talk about Ivanka and the rest of your family, and also about your impending new career as a grandfather.
Ooh, okay.
There was no slacking off in the Trump family. We worked hard. We got great grades.
We kind of got brought up in a business mindset. It wasn't a conventional father-son relationship. That said, we did spend a lot of time together, and you know, I'd come in and sit in his boardroom. While he's there, I'd be playing on the floor.
We worked every summer, and we understood the value of a dollar.
My father, and rightly, really exalts my grandfather.
My grandfather was very involved and kind of looking over his shoulder as he was getting his start here in New York. And I think there was a real great mutual respect, both from a father-son relationship, but also as peers and business people.
The lessons that he taught him, the elements of hard work, the characteristics of what it means to be a great builder.
Of course, that was Donald Jr., Ivanka and Eric Trump, Donald's children, and indeed the next generation. You're about to become a grandfather for the third time, so this is now almost a career for you, Donald.
Well, that's a tough word to handle, that word grandfather. I don't feel like a grandfather, but that's okay. I spoke to a great friend of mine today, Steve Wynn, and he's a grandfather. I said, what do you do? He said, I tell them to call me Steve. and he's just a terrific guy. And I said, you know, I think I'm going to do that. Let him call me Donald. But it's a tough word.
We had a great tweet from Good Karma Flomo, which said, would your children be as successful if they hadn't had the best in life provided to them from an early age, do you think?
Well, I think you never really know. I think they're very smart kids, and, you know, they get into the best schools, and they get very high grades and very high aptitude on the tests and everything else. But you never know that. I mean, really, if you set them, if they didn't have a father that had a lot of money that can sort of send them on the way, you really don't know who's going to be successful, who's not. All I can say is they're in a certain circumstance, and within that circumstance, they have been amazing so far. Maybe in 10 years you'll be interviewing me and I'll say, well, who knows?
How tough a dad are you, do you think?
Pretty tough. I think that I want them to appreciate the value of the dollar. I want them to appreciate life. They have great respect for people, all people, not just successful people. And I want them to respect people. And I've always been there. You know, It's a very fragile life, Piers. You're doing something, I'm doing something. It's all very fragile. I want them to respect all people.
If one of, it'd have to be Ivanka in your case, had gone off the rails like Lindsay Lohan has gone off the rails, how would you deal with that?
Well, it's a very tough thing. I know Lindsay's mother and father, and, you know, they get terrible press, but I don't think they're bad people. I think they're devastated over what's going on with Lindsay. And as you know, Lindsay wanted to be on the Celebrity Apprentice, and we couldn't take her because of her difficulties. I mean, I want to take her. She'd be great, but we just couldn't do it. I just want to see her get straightened out. I know her. She's a really nice kid, but she's got problems between drugs, alcohol, and other things. She's got some big problems, and she's got to solve them.
Rosie O'Donnell, talking of problems, was being quite complimentary about you today. Suggesting that maybe the ice is beginning to melt.
Wow, that's a big statement. Wow, wow, wow.
Are you ready to offer a peace offering? You ready to put it behind you?
Well, I heard she had some very nice things to say. I was
Come on,
shocked.
Donald. Now's the time.
No, I was shocked.
Make it up. Say something nice about it.
just
Force
don't
yourself.
know. I have to read what she had to say, okay?
Are you ever going to retire?
No, it's funny. Real estate people never retire. They just don't. Everyone in my business, you know, I used to be the youngest in the business. I was pretty good right from the beginning. I really did a good job. The convention center, the Grand Hyatt Hotel, lots of jobs, big jobs at a very early age, a very young age. And I'd watch these guys, and they were in their 70s, 80s, 90s, Harry Helmsley. They were all much older people. And they never retire. Real estate people love what they do, you know. And I think, you know what it is? We build beautiful buildings, and that makes up for the fact that the face is starting to fall. That's great. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.